What's up dudes, I'm back with another video. Today we'll be looking at lost media in the form of albums. We'll be delving into the hidden vaults of music history as we look at some of the most intriguing, interesting, elusive albums that have captivated collectors and rock and metal fans alike.
Slipknot, Look Outside Your Window.
During the recording of Slipknot's fourth album, All Hope Is Gone, a splinter group separated itself from the rest of production. This splinter group itself was led by Clown, but also featured Corey Taylor, Jim Root and Sid Wilson. This splinter group created an alternative album on the side of recording. Apparently it was much more melodic and much more experimental than what the actual Slipknot project was doing at the time. Supposedly this stuff was closer to Radiohead than to anything that Slipknot had done in the past. The album, titled Look Outside Your Window, features songs with working titles such as Dirge, Chapter 1, In Reverse and Moth. One song actually made it onto the album All Hope Is Gone. You can hear the difference right on the end of the album, the track Till We Die. It really does sound like it's from another project. Although it is an amazing song and really makes me want to listen to the rest of the songs that they created. As it turns out, we might actually get to hear these songs. As of last December, it was confirmed that the album was mixed, mastered and had artwork and is possibly going to be released in 2024.
Deftones, Eros.
2006's Saturday Night Wrist was a very difficult album for Deftones to make. They were literally on the verge of splitting up while making it. In 2008, they returned to the studio with their longtime producer Terry Date. He had previously worked on Adrenaline, Around the Fur, White Pony and Deftones. During the recording of that album, unfortunately Chi Cheng, the band's bassist, was in a serious car accident that left him in a coma. The band decided to shelve the album with Chi still in hospital. The album had the working title of Eros, and according to members of the band, they had 6 full songs complete at the time. As of 2024, those songs have not seen the light of day. There is quite a lot of difference from Saturday Night Wrist to 2010's Diamond Eyes, so it would have been really interesting to be able to hear musically, sonically, you know, that album in between and where they were sort of to connect the dots from album to album. Just as a side note, I think Saturday Night Wrist is a massively underrated Deftones album.
Metallica, The Presidio Sessions.
St. Anger is one of the most divisive albums ever made. It's always debated. Disliked by most, but it has a fan base. It could have sounded very different if Metallica stuck with the original batch of songs that they had for the album. Known as the Presidio Sessions. In 2001, these were recorded at the US Army's Presidio base in San Francisco. Kirk Hammett said these songs contained a lot more melody and there were about 15 songs that had been written. You can actually hear the band playing a few in the Metallica documentary Some Kind of Monster. During the sessions, James Hetfield was struggling with alcoholism and arguments were prevalent all the way through the recording process, as you can see in the documentary. James actually left the recording to enter himself in rehab. The band continued to work on the songs but actually did decide to drop them and start afresh once James returned in May 2002. And we all know how that turned out. There are a few snippets on YouTube and some other audio from other places, but I don't think we will ever get to hear this album in full as it was originally intended, unfortunately. Although I would recommend, if you haven't seen it already, watching the Metallica documentary Some Kind of Monster. It's a very interesting watch for any fan of metal.
Korn covers.
There have been reports of a Korn covers album going all the way back to 2004. It's been mentioned in magazines, in interviews, but this album still eludes the release radar. The band does love a cover and they've given us many over the years, just a few for example. Pink Floyd's The Wall, Cameo's Word Up and Alice in Chains Would. But fans are still interested in hearing a full Korn covers album. In 2005, the band mentioned having Chester Bennington do the lead vocals in a cover of the 9 Inch Nails song Head Like a Hole. Amongst other covers, Black Sabbath Paranoid, Shout the Devil Motley Crue, and loads of others they've talked about over the years. Weirdly, the band's sound does really lend itself well to covers and they do seem to make these songs their own. The album itself might not be a total loss. In a 2019 interview, Monkey and Jonathan both said that they were stockpiling covers, possibly for a future release. So as of 2024, we've still got no Korn covers album, but you never know.
Cradle of Filth, Goetia.
Goetia was supposed to be the first ever Cradle of Filth album. The band were recording the album at Springvale Studios in Ipswich. However, due to bills and fees not being paid to Tombstone Records, the label that the Filth were on at the time, the master tapes were wiped, and unfortunately the record label fell shortly after. This would lead the Filth to sign with Cacophonous Records and release their 1994 debut, The Principle of Evil Made Flesh. In an interview with Loudwire in 2019, Danny Filth did state that the tapes were wiped due to them not paying the bills. The reason they didn't pay the bills was because they did not want to continue working with Tombstone Records, because Danny Filth, air quotes, called them a rubbish label. He then went on to say that it was a blessing in disguise that they did not continue with the album, as they would have been tied into a 7-album deal with the label, and maybe Cradle of Filth would have been a very different band and not have done quite as well as they have done up to this point.
Green Day, Cigarettes and Valentines.
In 2003, Green Day were recording an album, a follow-up to 2000's Warning, called Cigarettes and Valentines. Apparently the album was almost complete. They were moving away from the more rock direction that they'd taken on Warning and going back to a more fast-tempoed punk style that they'd done previously. One day the band returned to Studio 880 where they were recording the album, only to find that the master tapes had been stolen. This led to the band deciding to scrap the album entirely and not bother re-recording it. This decision would lead them to writing the massively successful American Idiot album that would go on to sell 16 million copies and win a Grammy for Best Rock Album in 2005. So yeah, not that bad. The band would actually comment in later years that it was a blessing in disguise that they couldn't complete the album. The tapes were recovered, so the band did actually revisit some of the songs. A few of them were played live and they released some of them as B-sides. There may be a parallel universe where these tapes were never stolen, we never got American Idiot, and we got Cigarettes and Valentines instead. Unfortunately, this is not that universe, and we will probably never get to hear the full album as it was originally intended. Hope you guys enjoyed that. It's a very, very interesting subject of lost media. I thought I would cover some albums that I would love to hear if they were made in a parallel universe. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Follow me on Instagram. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you dudes in the next video. You should go and subscribe to my channel, just because. Come on, subscribe.